All right, buckle up. This isn't some creepy campfire story. This is the kind of terrifying where you'd rather stay in a flooding car, risk drowning, than take another step forward into the dark. It happened out there, in the middle of nowhere. Rain coming down like the sky cracked wide open. No warning, no mercy. Me and my buddy Mike, soaked through every layer of clothing, shivering like idiots, stumbled across what looked like salvation. An old church, tucked in the trees. It looked abandoned. It wasn't. God, it wasn't. We weren't looking for trouble. We just wanted somewhere dry, somewhere to ride out the storm, warm up, catch our breath. We thought it'd be a break from the madness, but instead, we found something that was waiting. And when that massive pipe organ, the one buried in shadows, the one we thought was dead and dust covered, when it started playing all by itself in the pitch black, that's when we realized we weren't just stuck inside during a storm. We were trapped with something else, something that shouldn't exist, something that never left. And this is what happened when we made the mistake of taking shelter in a place that wasn't empty. Man, that rain wasn't playing around. It was biblical, like someone upstairs got angry and turned on a celestial fire hose. One minute, Mike and I were cruising this back road shortcut, just arguing over whether that sketchy diner burger was worth the stomach cramps. And the next, we were in a full-on whiteout. The windshield wipers were flailing like they were on their last legs, useless. Visibility? Zero. The headlights blurred into these weak, glowing smears. The road, if you could even call it that, was mostly dirt, now just a rising, muddy stream. Mike was gripping the dashboard like it might save him. "Pull over, dude," he yelled over the roar of the rain. "Seriously, we're going to hydroplane straight into a ditch." And he wasn't wrong. The wheel felt floaty, loose, like it wasn't totally connected anymore. Every little bump in the road sent the car sliding sideways, just a bit, enough to feel your gut flip. Outside, trees rushed past like angry shadows. Nothing but forest. No lights. No signs of life. Just thick, waterlogged woods pressing in all around. "Where?" I shouted back. "There's nowhere to pull over to." That's when it appeared, almost like it materialized out of the rain itself. Off to the side of the road, barely visible through the downpour, stood a building. A church. It looked ancient. Stone walls streaked with moss and age, barely holding themselves together. The steeple leaned like it was drunk, just seconds from falling. Most of the stained glass windows were broken out or boarded over. It screamed abandoned, and not the peaceful kind, the kind that holds memories. Dust and something else. "Church," Mike pointed, nearly bouncing out of his seat. "Right there! Go, go!" I didn't need to be told twice. Better to take our chances inside than get washed off the road. I turned the wheel hard, the tires skidding through the mud before catching and pulling us off the road toward a patch of gravel. The building loomed in front of us, dark, weathered, silent. We shut off the engine and just sat there for a second, listening to the rain pound against the roof like fists. It wasn't comforting. It sounded angry, like we were unwelcome. Mike ran a hand through his dripping hair. "Not exactly 5 stars, but it's dry, mostly. Looks deserted." "Deserted is good," I muttered, though the back of my neck prickled. Not from the cold, from something I couldn't explain. The kind of instinct you don't argue with, the kind that whispers, "Don't go in there." But we ignored it. We were cold, tired, and desperate. We grabbed what little we had, a half-eaten bag of chips, a couple warm sodas, my dying phone, 1 bar left, and Mike's flashlight that flickered when you tapped it. Not exactly survival gear. The door was heavy. Thick, weathered wood. When we pushed it open, the sound it made was something between a groan and a death rattle. Rusty hinges screamed in protest. It echoed in a way that instantly made the whole place feel too big, too hollow. The air hit us hard. It was cold but not fresh. It smelled like dust, not the kind that just gathers from time, but deep, choking dust. Under that, something damp, earthy, and under that still, a hint of sweetness. Decay, maybe. Not enough to gag, but enough to make you think twice about breathing too deep. Mike swept the flashlight slowly, cutting through the gloom. The interior stretched out in all directions. Rows of dusty pews lined up like sentries. An altar up front, raised slightly. The ceiling? Lost in shadow. Cobwebs drifted like old curtains. The floor was stone, cold and gritty underfoot. Some of the stained glass windows still remained, but so dirty and dark they didn't let light in. Just weird, distorted shapes. Cozy, Mike muttered. His voice sounded wrong in there. Too loud. He gave a nervous chuckle. It didn't echo. It just died. Yeah, I echoed. But I didn't feel it. Every instinct I had was on edge. My eyes kept flicking to corners the flashlight didn't reach. The darkness didn't feel like absence. It felt like presence. We picked a spot near the back, far from the altar, far from that front space where the darkness just seemed thicker. We didn't say it out loud, but we were both thinking the same thing. Stay close to the exit. Well, what we thought was an exit. We sat down on the dusty stone floor, backs pressed against a pew that looked sturdy enough to hold our weight. Mike propped the flashlight against one of the bench supports so it would stand, casting these weird, long shadows that moved every time the beam flickered. It made the empty pews in front of us look like silhouettes, not furniture, shapes, hunched figures. Watching. We ate chips in silence. The sound of crunching echoed like breaking glass in that still air. I remember thinking how wrong it felt, how loud and careless we sounded. Every little noise got to us. The whistle of wind sneaking in through a cracked window. A slow drip, water hitting stones somewhere deep in the walls. The soft groan of the building settling around us. It didn't feel empty. It felt abandoned. And there's a difference. Abandoned things still carry memory. They carry weight. They carry what was left behind. Mike leaned in, voice barely more than a whisper. Think anyone's been here recently? I glanced around. Dust blanketed everything. No footprints, no drag marks, nothing but our own messy trail near the front doors. Doesn't look like it, I said. Maybe decades. Good, he muttered, but he didn't sound like he meant it. He kept glancing toward the altar. Toward that hulking shape half swallowed by shadow. The flashlight beam barely reached it, but we could make out its shape now. The organ. It was massive. A monstrous construction of dark aged wood and rows of pipes that disappeared upward into black. It didn't look like an instrument. It looked dead, like a carcass, like the fossilized remains of something that had grown there. Honestly, it looked like the skeleton of some kind of giant insect, all hunched and folded in on itself. I pulled out my phone, still had that one bar of service flickering in and out. I checked the time, but then the screen went black. Battery dead. Total isolation. Just us, the suffocating silence, the dead air, and the relentless percussion of rain hammering the roof overhead. That silence, it wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Time passed, slow, distorted. Every minute felt like an hour. The initial comfort of being dry wore off fast. What replaced it was harder to explain, a tension under the skin, like something watching, something just out of sight, something holding its breath. Then it happened. At first, it was quiet, almost subtle. A single note, not music. Not at first. Just sound. Low. Deep. Heavy. Boom. It came up through the floor, through our bones. Mike and I froze mid-chew, like someone had pressed pause on reality. We turned to each other at the exact same time, eyes wide, faces pale in the beam of the flashlight. That sound, it shouldn't have been there. It vibrated through the stone, not just heard, felt. What was that? Mike whispered. His voice sounded fragile, like one wrong move might break everything. I tried to think. Wind? I offered. Even I knew how stupid that sounded. There was no wind in that building. And that sound, it was too clean, too exact. It was a note. Then, another note, slightly higher. Boom. They weren't random. They were deliberate and slow. Mike's hand was trembling as he reached for the flashlight. He turned the beam toward the altar, toward the organ. The circle of light moved through the gloom, across empty pews, over the cracked altar, until it landed on the massive console of the organ. Dust-covered keys, empty bench. Still. Boom. Bah! Another note, then a low, sour chord. Not a song. Not yet. Just notes. Trying. Testing. Something was playing, but nothing was there. My blood went cold. Not a chill. This was different. Deep. My breath caught in my throat. I whispered, Mike, I see it, he whispered back. I see nothing. And he was right. There was nothing visible. But the music kept coming. A slow, disjointed soundscape, growing more confident, more unhinged. Low tones that rattled the floorboards, high pipes that sounded like screams wrapped in metal. And through it all, that feeling. Like invisible fingers were crawling down our spines, like the darkness itself was listening. The scent of decay grew stronger, that sweet, cloying rot, not enough to gag, but thick enough to taste. Mike stood up suddenly. Something's playing it, he said almost to himself. Something's here. He moved the flashlight in jerky sweeps across the room, up into the choir loft. Nothing. The pulpit, empty. The pews, just shadows. Clunk. A sharp, mechanical thud echoed from the organ. Then a hiss, like air being forced through cracked metal. And just like that, the chaotic music stopped, but something worse replaced it. A thin whistling pipe, alone, started shrieking this strange, high, tuneless melody. It sounded broken, like a music box that had been drowned, frozen, and then dragged out again just to see if it still worked. Okay, nope, Mike gasped. He was backing away fast. Time to go. I don't care about the storm. I'd rather take my chances in a river. And he was right. Every part of my brain was screaming, run. We scrambled to the front doors. Mike reached for the handle, yanked hard. Nothing. I threw my shoulder into the other one. They didn't move. The iron handle shifted maybe an inch, like it wanted to open, but then stopped. Jammed, sealed, blocked from the outside. No. The side door, I yelled, already running. We tore down the side aisle. The high-pitched piping followed us, rising and falling in pitch, almost mimicking our panic. There, a smaller door tucked near the altar. Mike reached it first. Same thing. Solid. Immovable. It didn't even rattle. It was like the building had decided, you're not leaving. And just like that, it became real. Not just creepy. Not just weird. We were trapped in a church that locked itself with something that knew we were here. We ended up back near the altar, not by choice, just the only place left to go. We crouched behind a pew like kids hiding from a monster under the bed. Only this wasn't imaginary. This was happening. Mike held the flashlight in a death grip, and the beam was already starting to flicker, because of course it was. Of course it was dying now. The organ had gone quiet again, and somehow that silence was worse, thicker, heavier, like something was holding its breath, waiting. Mike's voice came out like a dry cough. Okay, think. We've got to think. There's got to be another way out. A window we can break, a basement, a crawl space, I don't know. That crypt thing. He pointed the beam toward the far side of the altar, a section we hadn't noticed before. A low arch, mostly hidden behind a shredded velvet curtain. It looked blackened from age, mold, or something else. Above the arch, carved into the stone, were worn words I barely recognized. Inferos. Even with my barely passed Latin class, I knew exactly what that meant. To the underworld. No, I hissed. Mike, no. We are not going down there. What choice do we have? He snapped, his voice shaking as panic overtook him. The doors are sealed. The windows are 10 feet off the ground and boarded up. What do you want to do? Sit here and wait for the Phantom of the Damn Opera to come drag us off? I couldn't argue with that, because he was right. And that was the most horrifying part. Going into that darkness wasn't insane. It was logical. The flashlight beam hovered over the curtain. It looked wet, like it had absorbed years of rain, blood, and rot, and behind it, no light. No suggestion of walls or steps, just a swallowing black. Thud. It came from behind the curtain, a deep, heavy sound, not sudden, deliberate, like something massive had just taken a slow step forward. We both froze. I felt the blood leave my face. Mike whimpered. I mean, literally whimpered, and he wasn't someone who scared easily. Then the organ started up again. Not random this time. A slow, crushing dirge. Each bass note slammed into the stone like a funeral march for a cathedral. Above it, high, twisted pipes joined in, shrill and piercing, like children screaming through metal. The air around us moved with it. Every note shook dust loose. The building groaned like it was responding, and that sound, that music, it was coming from behind the curtain, from down there. Another thud! Closer this time. Okay, Mike whispered, barely able to form the words. We go. Fast. We find another way out. A back exit. A crawl tunnel. Cold chute. I don't care. He moved before I could say a word. Driven not by courage, but by raw, unfiltered survival instinct. He grabbed the edge of the curtain and yanked. It tore with a noise that made my skin crawl. Wet, meaty, like ripping through flesh. Dust and that awful sweet rot burst out with it. Behind the curtain, stone steps. Narrow, wet, slick with slime. Descending into a void that swallowed even the flashlight's beam. The air was different down there. Still, cold. It smelled like earth and something else. Metal, rust, blood. The organ's song grew louder near the archway. Now it wasn't just sound, it was pressure. You felt it in your chest, in your teeth. Then thud from the bottom of the stairs. Go! Mike shoved me toward the opening. Just go! My feet moved on their own. The top step was wet stone. Freezing. Slick. Each step down took us deeper into a throat of shadow. The flashlight barely helped. Every bounce of the beam just made the darkness look more alive. We moved fast, but careful. We couldn't afford a fall. The descent went on, longer than the height of the building above us. That wasn't possible. But we kept going down. The air got colder, tighter, like it didn't want us breathing it. That rotten, sweet smell thickened, now mixed with that sharp, metallic edge. I felt it in my nose, my throat, my stomach. Finally, the steps stopped. We stood in a stone chamber with a ceiling so low we had to duck. The walls were crumbling, old, niches carved into the stone, empty, thank God. Rotten barrels, wet floor, and directly across from us, another door, heavy, iron-bound, newer than everything else down there, and slightly open, just a sliver, but enough to see darkness beyond, a darkness that felt different. Thud. From the other side of that door, Mike aimed the flashlight, but his hand was shaking so badly the light danced like a strobe. That's when I saw it, on the floor, right inside the doorway, a footprint. Not human. It was long, elongated. The toes ended in sharp points like claws. It was wet, slick, smeared with something dark, black in the light. But the smell? Copper. Blood. I broke. My mind just broke. The organ, the doors, the descent, the cold, the silence. All of it crashed through me and shattered whatever thread I was clinging to. I started babbling. No. This isn't real. This isn't real. Mike sobbed, actually sobbed. The flashlight dropped, and then we saw movement. Behind the door, something shifted, tall, thin, wrong. It had angles, not human ones, like joints that bent the wrong way, and two lights. Eyes? No, not glowing, just reflecting. Far apart, too far. They watched us. The organ above reached its peak. A crescendo of shrieking pipes and throbbing bass, then stopped. Dead silence. And in that stillness, a sound from the blackness beyond that door. A slow, wet, rattling inhale, like air dragged through a punctured throat, like something learning to breathe again. That broke me completely. My scream tore out of me before I could stop it. Run! Oh God, run! Mike, run! I didn't wait, didn't think. I scrambled up the steps, crawling, slipping, falling, scrambling again. Mike behind me, that flashlight jerking wildly. Stone, dust, rotted curtain, light. We hit the church floor like animals, didn't stop, didn't speak. We ran straight to the main doors, screaming, pounding, slamming our shoulders against them. And this time, with a groan and a shower of dust, the left door gave. It flew open, slamming against the wall. Rain poured in. We didn't hesitate. We didn't look back. We ran through the mud, the dark, the screaming storm. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs gave out. We found the car hours later, maybe more. The rain had slowed to a bitter, cold drizzle. We weren't even looking for it. It just appeared, blinking its hazards in the dark like a little lifeline. We climbed in, started it, and drove, all night. The heater was on full blast, but we never felt warm again. We didn't talk. Not on that drive, not for days. What was there to say? Mike quit his job, moved across the country, changed his number. He doesn't even say the word church anymore. I tried to go back to normal, pretend it was stress, hallucination, shared hysteria, but it never works. Because sometimes when it's really quiet, when the rain starts tapping the roof just right, I hear it. Just one sound, a low, rich, impossible note. Boom. Or worse, that sick, wet inhale in the dark silence of my apartment. I don't think we left it behind. I think we woke it up. We took shelter in an empty church. The organ started playing by itself, and we learned the hard way. Some places aren't abandoned. They're occupied. And some things are very, very patient. Yeah, that's what happened. Blackwater Road. The old ruin near what used to be St. Ignatius, whatever it is now. Mike won't talk about it. He won't even think about it. Me? I just try not to listen too closely when the rain hits hard. Try not to focus on that sound you hear in the walls when everything else is still, because I know you don't find places like that. They find you. When you're cold, alone, tired, when the storm feels too big, and you're desperate enough to take shelter in the wrong place. Just remember this, they're never empty. Next time you see a broken church in the middle of nowhere, in the rain, don't stop. Don't even slow down. Just keep driving.